to the Academy. You're here with me, Chatty Tumbler, and in this sortie we are playing DCS. We're in an F18C. We're going to be getting everyone from this aircraft carrier. We're going to fly up to these ships, and we're going to drop paveway bombs randomly, just to practice laser guided bombs. These ships are moving very slowly, 13, 14 knots. So we're going to hit moving targets with the laser designator. We'll hit the Kuznetsov, and we'll hit the Elena, the two middle ships, and we'll use the sea radar to show how we can split those up and make it much easier. It's a bit of a long flight, so we'll do a lot of cutting and pasting to make this mission a bit shorter. I'll just show you what we're going to take for armament. So we need the fuel tank because it's quite a long way. We're going to take the lightning pod. We're going to take some bombs, some Paveway IIIs. They're going to be quite heavy, which we're going to be dropping in pairs. Paveway 3, Paveway 3, 100% fuel, and let's fly with port 21.
Request refueling.
So we'll wait to refuel and rearm, and we'll come back in a second.
Rearming.
Copy. Rearming complete.
So rearming's complete, and if we look outside, we see our port paveways there, just underneath. So just unfold these wings, and we'll be able to see the display slightly better. Let's just get those going. Okay, so while we're on the ground, we can set up the paveways. Go to Menu, Stores, GBU24, and the mode we're going to use is Claris L. Let's select that. The mechanical fuse is going to be nose and tail, and that's now set for all 4 of the bombs. But what we do need to do is we need to set, see we have 4 X's, we need to set the laser code for each of these. And the default code is 1688. So we select that, type 1688 and enter. We can see this one now has 1688. These are still X's. So we need to step 1688, step 1688, and step 1688. So my plan is to drop 2 bombs at a time on the ship. So let's just step again. So at the moment it's going to drop 1 bomb per button press. What I'm going to do is hit the UFC, change the quantity of bombs to 2 bombs every time I push the button, and I'm going to have them launch. Also, they hit 50 feet apart. And you can go a bit closer, like 25-30 feet, but I found that it's a little bit buggy, and sometimes the bombs will clip into each other and won't detonate. So that's for those. And if I go through the steps, you'll see all of them say there's still 2 150, so we have to do it one time. Other than that, let's just get the HMD on, fire up the flare because we'll need that later. Let's get this thing in the air. I'll get airborne and I'll come back to you in a second. So our plane is in the air, heading towards the target. If we look at F10, it's on a bearing of about 050. I've not put in a lat along or anything, I'm just kind of pointing that general direction, and we'll head on out. I'm going to climb up to about 30,000 feet for the cruise, and then I'll come down a little bit low when we drop the bombs, just to save fuel. I'll leave all these lights in kind of night mode, and that way you'll be able to see all the buttons much easier off the dials. Excuse me. So to find the ships, we are going to use our air-to-ground mode. Let's arm this because I forget otherwise. And we have a few different maps that we can choose. We have ground moving target, which is great for convoys and vehicles and things. And we have our sea map. We currently have a range of 40 miles, so I'm going to put that up to 80. And already we've picked up a target. As this is 80, so this fire range is 80, and it's divided by 4, so 60, 40, 20 miles. So at about 55 miles, something like that, there is a target over here. And what we do is we can practice looking onto a target. Before we do that, I'm going to just talk through some of the keys that we're going to use on this sortie. We're at 20,000 as well. Let me just level off. There we go. Maintenance, we'll turn our data look on as well over here. And off we go. So let's talk about the buttons that we're going to use. So to select, to fire a weapon, got the weapon release button. To change between our different sensors, So the DDI, so this big screen down here and then this screen here, we're going to flip between them. We use our sensor control switch. We've also got the throttle designator controller. So this is when we select this ship map in a minute, we're going to move the cursor around, and we move that cursor around with the throttle designator controller, the TDC, and the depress button is kind of like the lock button. So we're going to use that. We're also going to potentially use undesignate. That's this one here, undesignate. So we'll need that key as well. And I think that should do us. This is very bright. I'll just turn this down a little bit. So we have our contact now. There's one at about 40 odd miles. The flare is on. Great. So we're going to lock this target up just for a practice. So if I sensor control to the right, I get a little diamond to say that this is the active sensor, and I get two little bars here. If I use my throttle designator controller, TDC, that's the cursor keys in my case, I can move it around. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it over the target, and I'm going to hit return. And what that does is that creates, if we look out my helmet display, it creates a steer point. So I can fly towards that. Sorry, it creates a target point, not a steer point. So I can't actually use my autopilot to fly towards that. So any weapons that I fire now are locked onto that. So if you wanted to fire Mavericks at a ship, for example, that would do it. What you can do as well for more accurate, is we've got the return button, is you can, while you're over it, if you sensor control right again, it grabs it, and it's now pulled it as a more, it's now locking it with the radar rather than just using the kind of lat and long almost. And we've got that tracked. And the advantage with this one is if I go onto the flare is looking at it already. Let me just zoom in. Is it going to let me see at this time of day? Yep, we can see. Hang on, we just about see something. Okay, it's not the best in the world, but we can see that that is an oil rig. That's what we've locked onto. A little oil station there. So we don't need to blow that up. That's not part of our mission objective. And what we can do, so when we go back to attack radar, we now can't change the range. It's all kind of locked. It's tracking this guy. If I use my undesignate button, it brings us back to this big screen again, and then we can book a new target. We could find another one. That's probably another oil rig. So what I'm going to do is go and go back up to 80 miles. And we've got this target dead ahead here. Let's have a look at that. So I can hit return in my instance to lock onto it. Let's just see if the flare locks as well. Not sure if the flare is struggling because of the cloud there. Let's see if anything appears. Once we get past the cloud, I can see the sea behind it. Well, we can check. So it's looking at 44, 29, 20. If I go back onto the radar screen and I select over it and I hit right sensor select again, doink, it's now tracking it. Go onto the flare. 44, 29, 44, so it wasn't locking onto it. So hitting return creates a target point, but it won't slew the slur. Slew the flare. But if you do the right sensor select, then the flare will swing around. And as you can see, it's another oil platform. So we don't know that, so I'm going to undesignate again, and that frees up the flare and also puts the radar back into free mode. So we've got another contact up here, and that's what, 65 miles. And that's still probably not our target. Let's have a look. We're still 150 miles to target, so we will be speeding up time in a minute. So that's the basic procedure. We're going to see a target, we're going to lock it up. You can hit return to generate a point that you can bomb on. You can undesignate. Or if you can, go straight to the right sensor select. And that also generates a point. So it generates a point and it will slew your flare to the target. It is 30, so this is 40 miles. So this is 40 miles at the end, so it's divided by 4, so it's 30, 20, 10. The flare can see 43 miles, so we can definitely see that. Put the flare on. It's probably another oil rig. Yep, it's another oil rig. So we'll just undesignate, because we're not interested in that. Now the attack radar back on, and back up to 80 miles. Okay, welcome back. We are approaching the area. There's the ships up here. 80 miles is this point here. We're about 85-ish miles to go, and we're looking on the radar. What we're going to see as before is little bricks will start appearing at the top and they'll move closer to us and we'll be able to have a little look. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is with this, when you're moving this cursor, when you're hitting the TDC depress key, it's not really a lock onto any kind of target, it's a lock onto a position on the floor. So if I hit TDC now, you notice we get a lock, which means it's a fixed point. So if we're trying to do this against ships which are moving, it's not going to work when we drop our bombs. It's going to lock onto that bit of the sea and not onto the ship itself. We're going to have to individually select the ship. So I'm just going to undesignate. Now it looks like we've got our first ship here, coming in at just about 80 miles on the far left, and we can kind of cheat a little bit. So I'm guessing it's going to be this Seawise giant tanker. So what I'll do, I did say I was going to hit the Kuznetsov and the Alina, so we'll try and hit those first. We'll hit the Kuznetsov first, won't do very much damage, and then we'll hit the Selina. So let's have a look. So now we've got a little cluster of targets. We've got 4 of them showing. And what it can do is we can zoom in with the radar if we use EXP2. If we move our cursor, and hit return and then hit EXP2, it will try and zoom in on that place. And here's the 5th ship. So in amongst that melee is the Kuznetsov and the tanker we want to hit. If we're within 40 miles and we have a target selected, we can hit EXP2 and it will actually zoom right in. I'll show you now what we'll do. So what we will do is when it gets closer, we will put it over here, we'll hit EXP2, and then this box, when we've locked it, will appear here. But when it hasn't appeared over here, we can use TDC depress, keep it pressed, and move your cursor around and you can move the box up to 40 miles. And what that does is when I let go of TDC depress, it kind of zooms in on that little area. So there's nothing here, but that's a zoomed in area of that square that we picked. So we're going back up to 80 miles. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit return just to give me a steer point. We can talk very briefly about what we can do with the lasers as well. So we're just pointing this way for now, and 67 miles to go, so that gives me a few bits to talk about. So first thing we have to make sure we do is have our laser armed. Well, double check. Master arm is on, edge ground is on, obviously, because we've got the sea radar up. Laser is armed. If we go into our flare, we hit this trig button here. If you forget this bit, it's not the end of the world. What that does is when I drop the bomb, if I don't have it selected, the laser is going to fire straight away, and it will fire for the whole time and for about 1 minute and 20 seconds or 2 minutes, something like that. If with the trig button selected, what happens is the bomb will drop, but the laser won't fire until the last minute, or the last literally the last 60 seconds, and that way it saves your laser from burning out. So it's a good practice to have it selected. So we have the laser on, we have trig selected, we haven't got a target yet, so we'll go back to the sea radar. We're coming now. We could, let's just unselect, we could potentially just try and grab it. So we've got 2 ships there that we know, these 2 in the middle are the Kuznetsov and the cargo ship that we're after. So we could try and grab it by putting it over it and then doing the sensor select right, and there we've got it pinged. And we could aim off, which we're going to do anyway, because that clearly is the target. And as we come up to the target, we see some extra information's now appeared. So let's talk about what we can see on the screen, and then I'll give us time to get a little bit closer. So we have all of the fact that our bomb's ready to go. We have 4 minutes and 53 seconds until we're ready to launch our munitions. We've got some extra symbology, so we have the target, we have a fall line that ideally we want to be over, and we have lasers armed at the top, and we've got these 2 bars. And what's going to happen is as we get really close, sort of 10 seconds to go, a little green ball is going to appear at the top of the screen, and it's going to come down through here, and when it hits this, it will say in zone. So we're then in the zone that we can fire this missile, because we've got like a box, and I'll show you that in a second, that we can fire in. And then it's going to keep coming down, and we're going to push the button, the weapon release button, about here, keep it pressed, it will fall through the middle, and then the weapons will release. And in this instance, we're launching 2, and they will drop off. And what we have down on here is an actual visual representation of that box, which you can't quite see. Just go out to 80, you might be able to see it. So if we look here, this is the target, the diamond, and this little box is our weapon release box. So we need to fly somewhere in that box, and the laser will be able to hit the target and do nicely. We're 43 miles away, so what we can do is we can, let's go onto the attack radar and I'll show you how to zoom in. So we need to unselect it so we can actually manipulate the radar. We'll come down to 40 miles and just wait for these to come in, and hopefully we've got two ships right next to each other and we can see. Cool, we've got these two here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit return, hit EXP2, and it's zoomed in, and now we can see how wide those ships are. We've got, that's definitely the Kuznetsov, so we can select that one. Oh, let's quickly grab it. There we go. And we can double check on our flare. And of course it's thick fog. So somewhere down there is the Kuznetsov. So what I'll do is I'm just going to line up. We've still got 2 minutes and 53 seconds, so the time has changed until we have to launch. Again, we only have to be in this box, so we don't have to be exactly on, but the closer you are, the better it'll be. Can we see anything in the mist there? Nope. Let's come down a little bit. And as we descend, this time it will change slightly. You can see it's going a little bit quicker there as we're coming down. Okay, I can see a little mark there. Oh, I thought I saw a little black mark on the flare. We've still got 1:40, so I'm not massively worried yet. Can't see anything through the fog. Oh, you can see this, that's the smoky Kuznetsov there, possibly. Let's have a look on our radar. So it's undesignate. So I think that one is the Kuznetsov. So let's hook it. Come around to the right, to the left, sorry. Check with the flare. There we go. We had the wrong one, which is why it's always good to check. So we've zoomed in. That is definitely an aircraft carrier, and our laser is locking onto it. Now the laser will track it, but we may have to adjust it manually while the bomb is in the air. We've got 50 seconds or so to go to the weapon release. What I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out a little bit because it's easier to keep the radar going. So we're going to launch the bomb, and then rather than go to outside view and watch what's going on, we are going to switch this as the active sensor, and we're going to keep that cursor right over the middle of the ship. But it should track it because we've got a radar lock on it. And we'll just keep an eye. If we need to move it, we will. Okay, so it's 28 seconds to go. Flying straight and level. 20 seconds. And again, we're looking for the little ball that's going to appear up here. And if we look down here very quickly, this is the weapon release box. There's the target, so as long as we're in that box we can fire. 8 seconds. So there's the little ball, just coming down the top of the screen. Okay, so it's going to go, we're now in the fire zone, and you see the line changes to a solid line. So I'm going to press and hold the weapon release, and then that's it fired. We can have a quick look outside to make sure the weapons are on. Now, there we go, we've got our 2 bombs, and now we're going to keep looking on the flare. So we want to make sure that this maintains a lock on this carrier. If we lose the lock, we're going to lose the bomb. So it looks like it's tracking it quite nicely at the moment, because we're locked on with the radar, it's following it. So our bombs are still doing nicely. And they will hit the ship 50 meters apart, 50 feet apart. Again, the track is good, it's going a little bit off. So we can select it, we can very quickly move it, hit return. Our bomb should be hitting any second now. Boom, boom. There we go. 2 hits. Okay, we can. Our laser is still designating, so let's turn it off. And we'll save the laser. And what we'll do is we'll fly out and we'll come around and we'll do the same again to the cargo ship. So we're back here. We are about 20 miles out. And we're going to turn back around again. So what we're going to do is we are going to go back to our sea radar. Again, if we can't change the number, it means it's locked onto something. So let's undesignate. And then we'll need probably 40 miles. And just do a gentle turn onto reciprocal, so we're on 030, so add 180 to that is 210, so let's bring it round. I'm going to do the same again. While we're turning, rearm my laser, quickly go onto my flare, make sure trig is selected, then back to my C radar, carry on around, about 210, and start appearing any second now on the right side of the radar. There we go, there's the cluster of ships. So we know the one in the middle is kind of the Kuznetsov. So we can have a look at the map. So we want to hit the second one in from the left at the back there. So this guy here. So I select the right sensor, bring my cursor down, hover it over it, and then sensor select right again. That's now got it locked. We have our radar line. We'll get a countdown as we point towards it. So we've got about a minute. I can sort of get on the right heading. I'm going to quickly check on my flare. Let's zoom in. Yep, that is definitely a cargo ship. And we have a good lock. So we'll just let the radar keep the lock. I'm not going to mess with it. Nice and level. Don't even need the autopilot. Just hands off joystick. Keep an eye down here. So the radar is locking onto it, but we are going to keep monitoring that as we fly over. We may need to adjust it slightly. "30 seconds to launch." Or until we're in the launch area rather, and again we're going to fly into this box. We can be anywhere in there and it will still hit that target. 20 seconds to go. Okay. It's a moving target, which is why we're having to keep moving slightly. So laser's armed, trigger is set. 7 seconds until we're in the target zone, or the firing zone. Ball's coming down, so we're now in the firing zone. Gonna aim slightly ahead. Gonna press and hold the fire button now. And the bombs are gone. We can have a very quick look. Ooh, 6. There's the bombs, heading off towards that ship. And we just keep the laser locked. Just put that on. Going to zoom out so that if we need to make any adjustments we can do it quickly. Sensor select to the right. Oh, that was a bad idea. So sensor selecting to the right took it off the radar lock. So that is that would explain why that happens sometimes. So I'm going to keep it locked. Bomb should be coming in any second. Boom. There we go. Cargo ship destroyed. So the main thing from that one there is you notice when I went to the right to sensor select it, in that instance it took it off. The lock almost, it just stopped tracking the ship because it took over from the radar in this instance. So I had to quickly adjust with the TDC controls because it was a moving ship. If it was a static ship, you wouldn't have even noticed the difference. It would have, the lock would have kind of switched, but we wouldn't have seen it. And there we go. So we got airborne. We had our paveways, which we set to the correct mode. We put the code in for all of the paveways. Then we set them to fire in pairs with 50 meter spacing. We got it airborne to our target, and we used our C radar to locate them. Let's just unlock that so we can zoom back out again. And I showed you how to zoom in if you've got a lot of cluster of targets, and how to lock onto the C and how to lock onto an actual target. We armed our lasers. We made sure we had trigger selected in the flare up here, and we fired using two basic types of method. We used the radar, C radar, to hit the first pair, and then we used the flare a bit more on the with the second pair to hit that last ship. Hope that's been of use to you. If you have any questions or comments, please write below. I will always try and answer if I can. Hope to see you soon. Stay safe. Happy hunting.